everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power.
Ultimately, there are no winners. Everyone is a loser. It's a losing game for everyone involved.
It takes a couple of people to stand up and applaud, and everybody joins. Are they asking themselves why they're doing it? Not really. They're joining in the crowd.
I was looking at my recent Lululemon newsletter, and I just felt like, is it yoga clothes or is it some sort of a sexual foreplay advertising?
Capitalism gives you so many limited choices, but still a lot. You don't like the brand, go and buy another one.
Created life experience of Alexandra, not the real pain and pleasure.
A concept to be so needs to adapt to Soviet Union, but also to this present, but also in 100 years. Zelenskyy has quickly become a sex symbol. I am an equal opportunity offender, so I am very even communist in a way.
We are back, and I'm feeling like a little commodified rebel today, Drupi. I'm very much embracing my punk spirit with all the financial resources
Loads
possible.
of Vivienne Westwood, yes.
What's been happening? How are you feeling?
Fine, considering that there is a global pandemic and a global war. Fine.
Yeah?
Considering that you're Ukrainian Russian?
With a British passport?
With a British passport?
I don't know if it's a good thing or maybe it is just what it is, but to some extent, I think where the stage is, and you probably know it better, it's when you find out about something, you deny it, you feel sad, you feel overwhelmed by it, but then you just learn to live with it.
Yeah.
And I'm at the later stage, which is a bit more bearable compared to 1 month ago.
Yeah.
Obviously not great, but I guess it makes us more functional.
Yeah, we adjust to everything. That is so true.
This is a bit scary, right? Human beings are able to literally...
Yeah, it is scary, but it is also probably the greatest gift of humans because it's adaptation. Now, there is, I think it was Primo Levi, if I'm not wrong. I don't know if we talked about this before, but Primo Levi is this great Italian writer, amazing Italian writer, who is also, who was Jewish, and he escaped he survived the Auschwitz, and he survived Auschwitz because he was a chemist, and he was useful to them, so they spared his life. And when he left the camps, he started writing books. He became a writer, and what a great writer. And in one of his books, he talks about how in Auschwitz, there was still room for laughing. You know, even in that situation in which you're stripped off of everything, you still reconstitute some basic normal sort of things of a human life that you wouldn't expect from there. So yes, that to me, when I read that, I said, okay, humans are extremely adaptable. They adjust to some extent.
We're gonna adopt ourselves today. I even had a bit of an entertainment occasion. Last week I went to Barbican to see symphony orchestra play, and it was very thematic because it was dedicated to musicians who sort of existed under Soviet regime, and specifically originally it was dedicated to kind of counterbalancing Stalin whilst also existing in his regime, and generally all the heritage of composers. So the whole night was dedicated to Shostakovich, and it was a beautiful performance. But something that really struck me was Mussorgsky piece about dances of death, and it was 4-piece musical opera dedicated to ways to die, and it was something about dying while falling asleep, dying because of abusing alcohol, dying because getting old and being scared of it. It was very, like, all these pieces were very charming. It always starting like, oh, you are getting old and tired, why don't you follow me and die? Or keep on drinking, my friend, just one more glass and you can close your eyes. and oh, let me sing you lullaby, you'll just get tired and we can travel to the world. And I thought it was beautiful. Death was expressed in each piece in a very different way. So one was like very brutal and like the sound would go very high pitched and when it was end. Another one was very sweet and there would be a little bit of a tiny leftover of sound, sort of signifying falling asleep. And the last piece was about battlefield and how one side fights another to win, and essentially kind of death triumphs over everyone and says, doesn't matter which side loses or wins, I'm the ultimate winner of this game because all you will become mine. And that was the last piece.
So this is essentially the idea of the triumph of death that you very often see in the frescoes in Italy a lot, in France, in some place, of the Middle Ages. You see always the triumph of death, and you see the dark lady, you know, the skeleton dressed in black, that harvests the souls of humans because she always triumphs. But in the Middle Ages, that was it was not about death. Death was not something seen as bad. It was just the agent that allows you to achieve, if you behave well, eternal life. Is the so-called memento mori.
Yeah.
Don't worry about this life because it's the next one that counts, and therefore you have to aim at the next life. And therefore, death is neutral. Is the agent that allows you to, that allows God. Essentially, that allows you to go and meet God.
What do you think, Jippy? Do you think death is neutral?
Well, I am an atheist, and therefore I think that death is, absolutely neutral. There's nothing afterwards. Yes.
Okay, so you think this is the ultimate end? Well,
yeah.
You know what really struck me? Obviously, I don't know what sort of beliefs audience had, but for me, that final piece, first of all, was very telling about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and it also, I think, was a huge comment with ultimately there are no winners. Everyone is a loser. It's a losing game for everyone involved and for all of us. And I thought, wow, I was so taken aback by how piece written so many years ago can still be. I mean, it's an ultimate human experience in the end.
Yes.
But audience, everyone stood up and started applauding so intensely and vigilantly. And I just thought, it's not really, first of all, probably appropriate, because I think it's such a profound experience which just happened, this expression of death. And secondly, I thought, considering everyone knows what's going on in the world, and these are post-Soviet composers, surely we should, or Soviet time composers, surely we should probably acknowledge what, should we be celebrating this triumph of death, or maybe we should actually reflect on it and be still and think about it.
Yeah, two things this makes me think about. One is that you said it's still true today. I think it's still true today because great art does not speak about the present. It speaks to the present, not about the present.
Exactly, yeah.
Doesn't launch messages, it creates concepts. And messages die with the present, concepts can last in 100 years. So if I was just having a conversation about this with a friend of mine who was mentioning the Guerrilla Girls. And I do think that some of their work is beautiful. I also think that some of their work is too linked to stats, 5% of female artists. And that ages. You have to launch a concept, not a message. Otherwise it's marketing.
I also think it's very repetitive. Like we never feel fresh. We never feel like we're evolving.
Because there is one, how can I say, one thing that they talk about, just one, is not adaptable. A concept to be so needs to adapt to Soviet Union, but also to this present, but also in 100 years to a different situation. If it's too specific, it only adapts to that one situation. That's the difference between political messages and artistic concepts. Anyway, and this is one thing. Then I'm thinking, but they were applauding, but were they celebrating? Because why do people applaud in, especially in places like London or New York or Milan? Why do they applaud when there is a play or something? They're not really applauding the message. or the concept even. They are applauding the execution of it. And this is one thing. The second thing is, as you know, now I'm obsessed with scientific studies because I am studying, I'm doing an MSc in psychology. And one of the things that I recently came across is the studies, the beautiful studies that I'm actually studying now because I'm writing a paper in it, is the studies on conformity. How people conform and how it's the process of conformity are very interesting. And so basically it takes a couple of people to stand up and applaud and everybody joins. Are they asking themselves why they're doing it? Not really. They're joining in the crowd.
It's super interesting, Juppe. I think how we are moldable to just comply with what everyone else is doing. And therefore, that's why I'm making this comment. I think often just to jump into what everyone else is doing and comply doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. Like, because most of people doing it, it never signifies where it's most appropriate.
Yeah, but they have studied that people that do not conform, besides the more behavioral things, they have studied their brains, and some circuits of pain are activated when people don't conform.
Circuits of pain?
Yeah.
What are they?
We have circuits of pain and circuits of pleasure. Like you can see, basically, when you do an fMRI scan, you do see what in the fMRI scan. I don't know if you have watched it before. The brain scans, essentially, you see that certain areas go light and certain areas stay dark, and the circuits that are usually associated with pain go bright up when the individual does not conform. So it's almost a reduction of pain in a way. I'm stretching the concept now, but it's almost a reduction of pain to conform. We are designed to conform.
Well, I guess I decided not to conform. I was really taken back by a message. But I have to say, I probably have to give everyone a bit of a sort of merit to exercise vibe of applauding. I think you're right, it's technique. And secondly, the opera was in Russian, so I could really understand the context. And I think a lot of people were probably just enjoying the experience. So that's also true. But it still struck me.
Also, especially the operas, nobody goes there for the story. If it's an Italian opera of the 19th century, you always know the woman is gonna die. Traviata, she dies every time she dies. She dies of consumption every time. And I don't know, Madame Butterfly, it's always the same story. So you're not really, or I think who was the other one who dies in the desert? The other one is Manon Lescaut, dies in the desert. Yeah, of thirst and starvation. So you're not really applauding the death of the woman. You're not even interested in the story. You are applauding the way in which the actress plays or the actor play the aria, not really the content of it. So yeah, I think there is this. Actually, this shifts our attention from especially in operas, from the concept to the execution.
It's interesting. I think, I probably, experience pain and pleasure simultaneously but this is, to be honest, I think this is probably a huge reflection on how I'm capable of doing our podcast. I reflect and see context and message and everything, and I think you're probably not too far from me as well.
No, exactly.
Well, tell me, do you think there's any hope left for skinny jeans?
So skinny jeans for trans forecasters is one of those very interesting examples, because you often quoted as a case study of a recent trend that has become a classic. So skinny jeans, technically speaking, are neither in fashion nor out of fashion, because they are so widely used that everybody possesses them in a form or another. Will they ever be out of fashion? Probably they will not be in fashion, but they will never be out of fashion. Does it make sense? It's a little bit like the Chanel jacket. There are moments in which it's less in fashion, but never a moment in which it's completely out of fashion.
I think it's more what we're not like considered trendy anymore.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
People on everyday occasions will keep on wearing them. However, for me, the article I read about skinny jeans dying out and how baggy jeans are the biggest thing of the moment, I think it's just very interesting counterbalance between how sexualized fashion has become in so many ways, and especially there's so much body exposed, and there's a huge notion for cutouts, for sort of a tight clingy body like skirts or tops which have lots of different fabric exposures, and simultaneously there are a lot of very low cut waist fits.
Yeah.
But a lot of clothes which are styled with these pieces were quite baggy, so it's kind of revealing and concealing body at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And some pieces are very tight and some are loose, but I find it quite interesting what simultaneously, if we look at the active wear, it's only getting tighter and tighter. I was looking at my recent Lululemon newsletter, and I just felt like, is it yoga clothes or is it some sort of a sexual foreplay advertising? What are you selling me here?
Yeah, maybe Lululemon yoga clothes, because they are technical things that you wear for working out. They can still be tight and have a reason for it. But if you try to do the same thing in fashion, because it's not technical, you don't have an objective
technical
reason,
excuse.
a technical excuse. It's seen as sort of not body positive enough, and a little bit of body shaming, because you are forced. This is the critique that Miu Miu received when they created the very, very famous silhouette, which is a silhouette with very tiny skirt. The very famous, and they repropose the same right now. And the critique was they are creating this skirt that can only fit skinny girls. Well, guess what? This is what fashion has always been about. And you can multiply body shapes, and fashion has done it. The job is done. We see it in pretty much almost every fashion show. There is diversity of bodies. What you cannot do is erase one type of body, which is the skinny one. You can't really do that. Besides, I am not that sure that fashion can really change the concept of beauty. Okay, fashion can diversify. It doesn't mean that tomorrow everything that you put on stage is going to be desirable from the point of view of sexuality. We know that beauty is not as socially constructed as we would like to think.
But don't you think beauty, like the standards, are constantly evolving? No, you think it's always the same?
No,
I think proportion of balance.
I don't think there are many studies about it. There are things in fashion, in terms of, but fashion. I want to clarify this: fashion is not about beauty or attractiveness. Sometimes it's about creating things that are repellent. Fashion is about newness.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, so, but when it comes to beauty, we have this idea, beauty changes all the time. Rubens painted big ladies. Yes, but Rubens' big ladies had the same hip-waist ratio that Marilyn Monroe had and that Twiggy had. Okay, different sizes, same ratio. So there are things that change in beauty. For instance, breast size, that changes a lot. And it's very easy to see if in the 60s and 70s, everybody would go to a plastic surgeon asking for a breast reduction. In the 80s, everybody wanted a breast enlargement. Okay, it depends. That shifts a lot. What does not change is skin. Okay, the skin as being youthful and unblemished and, without pimples, unlike me, and wrinkles, that doesn't change. Teeth, they should always be white.
And there.
Sorry?
We should always be white and there.
And there, okay. Exactly. And other things that don't change are the hip-waist ratio, or for men, the hip-shoulders ratio. And there are some societies that I read this a while ago. I need to find the article again because it was very interesting. That some societies uglify their women. So if you go there, you see those women who are ugly. They are those are tribes. I don't remember where. I need to, and I was trying to see, because the first thing that I looked at the pictures of these women and I thought, wow, that's a peculiar aesthetic. And then I read that they uglify those women, knowing what they're doing, because they want to prevent the neighboring tribe from stealing the women and bringing them. So they make them unappealing for the neighboring tribes.
What a smart technique. Maybe that's what fashion does.
Exactly.
We have lots of ugly tribes, so so Miu keeping their consumers safe.
Exactly. So yeah, this idea of attacking Miu for proposing for not being body positive enough. Besides, you don't like Miu? Don't buy it. So this is the point that I don't understand. I am short. I'm very short. I love Dries Van Noten. Okay. The few times I had the money to buy Dries Van Noten, I put Dries Van Noten on. It doesn't fit me. Dries Van Noten is for tall boys. It's not their fault. That's their target market. I am outside of the sort of the bell curve. I'm an outlier. I am too short. I'll buy Acne jeans because Acne jeans fits me. Therefore, I don't understand. It's not that every brand needs to create things for everyone. This moralistic approach, I do not understand. Fashion is so beautiful because it gives you so many choices. It's capitalism. It gives you so many limited choices, but still a lot. You don't like the brand, go and buy another one.
At least you're not short of ideas, Drupi. That's all that matters.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Well, I actually can relate. Yeah. Not all clothes is made for everyone. There are clothes for different types of people. And yeah, that's beautiful. Like, if the same pattern even in life and choices, careers, experiences fit everyone, this life would be that boring.
Yeah. And all fashion would be the same as well.
Yeah. So, that's it. Like different people have different choices and different people wear different fashion ultimately. But speaking of different life experiences and choices, I had the pleasure of visiting Have a Castle in Kent recently, which is, just to give a little bit of a context,
I saw those pictures in your Instagram account. Am I wrong?
You did.
So if you want to see the pictures of Alexandra enjoying the holidays, go to her Instagram account.
Okay, yeah. Check me out. Look at my well-curated life of things I share.
Things you select to share.
Yeah, selected, curated life experience of Alexandra, not the real pain and pleasure we experience on a daily basis. Who wants to see that?
No, exactly.
And that place, I was very interested and actually mesmerized, because it's not well advertised, so I haven't heard about this, but actually this is where Anne Boleyn grew up. This is her family house. And I will be honest, I never knew what was the real story behind her background. Obviously, I'm aware that she is the one who influenced Henry VIII to change the whole sort of development of British history. But I always thought it was just an affair which was really the motivator for him. But when I was at that exhibition in a house, I started reading a lot, and there was audio guide, and I found out actually the affair was with her sister Mary, which was very sexual. But Anne Boleyn, she actually was better educated, she lived abroad, she had lots of very cultured and fascinating friends, and she also followed French fashion religiously. So by the time she came back to England and Henry VIII met her, she actually was the most exciting, cultured, and unique person who is well aware of social and cultural trends over time compared to everyone else around. So it's not a surprise what he was charmed by her. And for me, it was a huge reflection with, look, actually, our background, education, and opportunities and resources, we don't determine the destiny, but we have a huge influence on how things can evolve and what opportunities are presented in our life. So I think next time I will be reading about some affair, I will not interpret it only in a sexual way. I think that's my big takeaway.
Yeah, and you were telling me before about the other women who
The educated?
Similar, yeah.
Who went to school?
No, all the women who should be read through a different prism.
Yeah, same. I started thinking about, Cleopatra, Madame Pompadour, when even, God, what's her name, was ballet dancer in Russian, who had an affair with Nikolai II, Margot, or anyway, I forgot, but
I don't know that.
Yeah, essentially, I think there are lots of women in history whom seem to have some unique experience. Like we literally had influence, but also the people we've been exposed to are truly the signifiers of society at that moment. And I always thought, geez, they must have had some insane sexual allure to them.
I mean, the Anne Boleyn, I think she was beheaded. You know the very famous story.
The brain couldn't exist in this world.
The 6 wives of Henry VIII are divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. Because that's the fate. And she was the second, and she was beheaded. And she was beheaded because allegedly she sexually teased a man, and we don't know whether it's true, but apparently she cheated on Henry VIII with a man. And
could have been a woman. Oh.
No, it was a man, unfortunately. And that's the problem, because if you cheat with a man, you are actually there are doubts about the legitimacy of the children. So that was a problem.
So essentially, cheating with women is fine.
I don't think they would have cared that much.
What do you think about cheating with transgender? Do you think it would have been an issue?
Despite there's no transgender at the time.
Obviously, I'm trying to reflect on the current.
Yeah, and by the way, it's often said that fashion was brought to France from Florence by Caterina de' Medici at the same time in which Anne Boleyn was being fashionable. So fashion was brought to France from Florence. So, I don't believe that, because fashion it's something that to me does not exist before the 19th century. But it is true that there was a moment of attention to what upper class women were wearing and how they conveyed status through it. And fashion and not fashion, but clothes would be particularly important for the daughter of Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth. So yeah, and that must have been so the story of Madame Pompadour that you were mentioning is very similar to some extent, and very interesting, because Madame Pompadour was a bourgeois, and she wanted to become the Queen of France in a way, since she was a child. And she was exceptionally intelligent, exceptionally cultivated, and apparently she managed to get to the king, and she ran the state. We know that she ran the state for many years. And when she died very young. She was 40 something. There's a beautiful book about Madame Pompadour by Nancy Mitford. And before she died, they did not have sex with the king. For many years. The king had other lovers, but she was his best friend. She was like a sister to him, and he would not choose anything without consulting her first. So it is often said that she was the real king of France at the time.
A little manipulating mistress.
I think the king knew that she was better than he was.
I think that's all fair, if you can. I think the beautiful our highlight of her destiny, she also died before revolution, so she managed to experience all the cake without paying for it with her head.
By the way, there is a story that nobody likes to say in Italy, nobody likes to study at school, but is historically proven, is that there is a countess called the Countess of Castiglione. And she is buried in Paris, in Père Lachaise. I went to her grave as well. She was Italian, and she was extremely intelligent, extremely cultivated. She could speak in so many languages, and she had a passion for writing. She kept constantly writing letters, and she was considered one of the most beautiful women at the time, and one of the most photographed women at the time. Far before the Marquise Casati. She was a Marquise Casati antelittera, but she was more intelligent than Marquise Casati. So much so that Italy, the Catholic nation of Italy, allegedly was founded because the Countess of Castiglione slept with Napoleon III, convincing Napoleon III to support the kings of Sardinia, who were to become the kings of Italy. So essentially the unity of the country, it's due not to the values of Catholicism, but to an act to a sin, essentially. The Countess of Castiglione sleeping with a man who's not her husband.
Well, you see, I think cultured and intelligent women with some ideas have profound influence on the world in which we live. And
yes.
Probably we give too much credit to sex in the end. Or I also think our society gives a lot of credit to visual aesthetics, and not that way do not matter. Like, look at both of us. We talk about visual aesthetics all the time. But I do think we sometimes miss the content behind, focusing so much on sex, visuals, and whatever we see on the surface.
Do you remember Oscar Wilde's, I think it was Oscar Wilde's quote that says, in life, everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power.
Well, so it is. So it does seem so. Well, Trippy, what else has been happening?
Is the fact that Zelenskyy has quickly become a sex symbol. And I do confirm, I think he's quite sexy. Don't you agree?
I mean, I think he definitely has charm, and he is very alluring, and obviously we watched some videos of him. He is definitely very well presented. I never potentially thought about him from this prism, but now when you say he's got very intense look, and I think he also has quite proportional face, which makes
he was an actor.
It makes it very satisfying to watch him.
No, this is absolutely true. And there is the amazing video of him dressed like a homosexual, dancing all the single ladies.
Right. Wow.
Did you watch that?
Yes, we watched it together.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. He
looks very dedicated in that video.
Very dedicated.
He is,
and he's very pretty as well. But the point is that until Zelenskyy was this sort of this sort of actor, challenging stereotypes and even being a little bit gender fluid, like in that performance, he was regarded by everyone, by the West, as a buffoon. Okay, I remember when he was elected, everybody was saying, because in Italy we have also a comedian who became a politician, Beppe Grillo, and everybody was comparing them and saying, oh, Zelenskyy is just, we in Italy, we always launch these, terrible ideas to the world. Like, for instance, Mussolini was copied by the Germans and they made a worse version of Mussolini. And I don't know, Berlusconi was launched into the world, and eventually copies of Berlusconi flourished in the West, like Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. That's the sort of Italian laboratory in terms of politics that launches bad ideas to the world and they copy. And the same thing was Grillo. We launched Grillo, the comedian who wins the election, and then, I mean, not Grillo himself, but his own party, and then Ukraine copies and they make him president, etc. And everybody was laughing at him. Nobody is laughing now. Now, what happened between that moment and, is that I think one key element, besides the fact that he is clearly, a president who he's a victim, but is the fact that he's an actor. He's a very smart actor. And he realized that he needed to create a persona for himself. He always appears in a t-shirt. The t-shirt is always a military t-shirt in green, always with his arms out, and always very, very, very tough. In other words, we are falling for the toxic masculinity example.
Ooh.
So until he was challenging stereotypes and he was the actor and he was jolly and he was, even though he had essentially the same ideas, he was looking at the West, he wished to, to become a modern democracy, everybody was laughing at him. Now, when he became a toxic macho man, what certain activists would call toxic masculinity, now we're all falling for him. He's so sexy, we stand by you. So what I mean is that it's very easy to criticize a model of masculinity until we need it.
May I ask you, JP, obviously I don't know, but do you think it could be your reflection? Or have you actually read what a lot of, I don't know, are there any statistics where people actually say what he is very sexually
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
So it's not your personal fetish.
It's not my personal fetish. Although I join in, but yeah, no, it's not my personal fetish. No, but it's if you Google like sexy Zelenskyy.
Okay, have you done that?
There is a lot, yes. And how? No, it's.
Now we know what everyone who listens
so
the idea, gonna be doing now.
The idea is toxic masculinity is very bad until you need it. Then reveals the desire. And you know that there is a psychologist that called Gad Saad, is an evolutionary psychologist who created a very weird experiment. Not weird. He studies the sexual behaviors of humans, and he looks into how much of socially constructed there is and how much there isn't, and how much gender stereotypes are, rooted in biology and how much they are chosen. And there is this idea that activists kept saying, all the movies, all the novels, by the way, romantic novels and romantic movies are almost exclusively, by statistics, read by women. So the idea was you are launching a message to these women that they have to like the macho man and, this macho man, and they are not liking other men because they don't have any other model to, every model in those stories. There is always a man who is a brain surgeon and he's very handsome, very macho. He fights bear. Surgeon. Yeah, usually they are either princes or brain surgeons. Like
interesting.
And he's a cross-cultural analysis. Okay, even in India 300 years ago would be either a prince or, because brain surgeon saves lives. That's why it's really? Somebody who saves lives.
Not firefighters. I thought maybe it's a Freudian sleep and they seen brain manipulators.
No, the brain manipulators actually are there's unfortunately not much manipulation. So what comes out from this study is that the romantic stories around the world in every historical moment are pretty much the same. Women want pretty much the same type of man. They want to fall for the same type of man. Then a publishing house tried to create novels with alternative type of men who are not so macho. And guess what? So the hero was a sweet man who would cry, who'd hug the woman with a little bit of belly, not too many muscles, pretty face but not too many muscles, etc. So it was the opposite of what we would associate with toxic masculinity, macho men. And the experiment failed. It didn't work. Women were presented with an alternative idea of man and they didn't like it. So maybe just maybe there is an element of not social construction that people, women and men, really like that type of masculinity.
Well, here we go, Jip. I think you
identified
a pattern. You identified a pattern of a sexy, toxic man in the media world in which we live today.
Yes.
But I don't know. I kind of feel, there are so many different people, and probably all the studies were great because they probably show the most common notions. But I don't think it's fair to unify everyone under the same pattern. There's always going to be outliers.
Absolutely. No. In fact, this is a very important point that you make. When I say those things, I mean to speak about indeed statistical majorities, but statistical majorities don't represent. I give you an example. I am an outlier. Okay. Yes, because I am not in the, if you look at what statistically is more common in men, I am outside of that. So I myself am an outlier, and you may be an outlier, but that's not how statistics works.
Set up a university of outliers.
Yeah, exactly. Statistics doesn't work that way. It works, and it doesn't work. It doesn't mean that if you are a man or a woman, you have to fit this pattern. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It takes in consideration that there is a percentage of, sometimes it's even a big percentage of people who do not fit the majority. But the point is, if you go to any street, and you stop a person, is that person more likely to be in the majority or in the outliers? And this is important because when you are selling a product, Okay,
want to sell
you
to
address the majority.
Indeed.
So it's not about, what I'm saying is not denying the fact that there is alternative things. Absolutely not. It's the fact that though the majority goes in another way, and it's not the right or the wrong way. Everybody should be free to be and to stand wherever they want. But when you analyze society, you have to have a clear in mind that there is a central tendency, a measure of central tendency, which does not mean that you have to fit there, but that's the measure of central tendency. And if you are a brand, you want to know that.
Yeah, here we go, Julia. I think Culture Gone Bad is podcast for outliers in the end of the day. And
yeah,
maybe according to what you mentioned earlier,
I think we are more for the majority than for the outliers. Can I say?
I mean, go ahead after what we're trying to sell here.
Because the majority, we say often things that the majority that are not often said because they're controversial, but are those typical things that are very often considered controversial, but the majority agrees with us, but they cannot say it out loud. So I do think that we are for the majority rather than for the minority. Yeah. We are certainly not for the woke, powerful minority. We are for the majority who thinks like us and doesn't speak.
Wow, what's an interesting twist you add to that? But I actually think in a way it also, does it make our practice more painful or pleasurable, or is it a good balance?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love every listener we have, majority, minority, I don't care. Just listen to us and follow and possibly subscribe. And so, yeah, no, it doesn't make it, because when I speak, we are not, me at least, I'm not thinking of who to please. I am an equal opportunity offender, so I am very even communist in a way in my distribution of critiques. Equally to everyone.
Oh, wow. Sounds like we're trying to unite all under our roof here.
Yes.
Well, guys, on this note, till next time, Culture Gone Bad.